G'day, guys. It's Jay here, Journey with Whitefeather. We've got koalas, kangaroos, and Steve Irwin impersonations, but we've also got, I love bears. I love Canada. This is one of my close friends. I used to be, a lot of people don't know I was an ex-pro wrestler and worked for the IWA promotion in Sydney and a few others. But wrestling for me taught me a lot with regards to life lessons, how to deal with people, so on, but also gave you a great family of people that you call family more than you call family sometimes. And this man here, the Canadian Hellraiser Jason Helton, which we're going to talk about what such a wonderful man he is for starters, a great wrestler, but he's been around the world, obviously with wrestling and stuff, but actually coming to Australia and what he did, and what we're looking to have a chat about is he's efforts in what he done personally with regards to his. I'll tell you, we'll put the photos up in a minute, and you'll see what I mean. What we do on this channel is talk about people and when their story of how they became better and became the person that they are now, a happy, content person. And this man here shows nothing more than he's a stellar individual, as we call it. Oh, he didn't pay me a cent either, ladies and gentlemen. But let's get started. Mr. Helton. I always call him Mr. Helton. We've always
Yes,
done
you
it
do.
from day one. I've called you Mr. Helton. Welcome to a chat with Jay. And
Thank you.
give us a little bit of a background on your life in a couple of words, couple of sentences, and just some major happenings, I guess, until you got to right this point where you're talking to me.
Um, well, I grew up in Calgary in Canada, and I don't know, I think it was like 4 days after I finished high school, I met Chris Benoit and a couple of the guys, and Chris
Yep.
invited me to come down to the. They had shows on Friday, and then on Saturday they had like a training session before they went up to Edmonton to wrestle on Saturday nights.
Right.
And he invited me to come down to the Saturday session, and they let me get in the ring, like just totally, and just see what I thought. And then I remember, do you remember Conan?
Oh, I remember Conan. He's got a great podcast.
Yeah, he was actually wrestling there as I think it was the Archangel.
Yeah, he said, yeah, I remember that. He did that. Yeah. Yeah, that's a
Yeah,
long
and
time ago.
oh yeah, this was like early of 1989,
Right.
and I remember I had no idea, never been in the ring before or anything, and he said I want to try something, so he said lie down there, and then the spot where you flip over and then you do the double like lock bodies and like bridge out of the one guy on
Yes, the
top,
double
one guy on the
bridge.
bottom.
Yep, the double bridge. Did it a few times.
Yeah, he wanted to do the double bridge, but I had no idea. So when he did the double bridge, I didn't even hurt in my head, and he just smashed on my head and like smashed my nose flat onto his back. I was like, oh man, that was because I was probably like what 180 pounds at the time, and he was probably 250. That's like I can't do a double bridge. Like I can't. Yeah, so he was very ambitious for me because I didn't have any idea. So he smashed my nose and then almost blew out both my knees. Pushed it as hard as I can, trying to get up, but I couldn't do it. But for some reason, I just loved it. It was like, yep, this is what I want to do. Even though I left my knees were sore, my nose was sore, and I failed miserably. It's like, no, that's what I want to do. This is fantastic.
So you went to the Hart Dungeon, if I'm correct, my friend. I mean, I went there last year. It
Yes.
was an honor to go down there. What was the experience there, and who was actually down there when you were training?
It was just me, Bruce Hart with the trainer, and a few other guys, but Morris Napus was my training partner. He was there from like beginning to end. Like
Yep.
we had a lot of people come through and quit like after 3 weeks because
Because of the stretching.
yeah, and just I started in December, which was like minus 25 degrees, and the dungeon isn't really heated.
Ugh.
So yeah, it was cool, and it was the. Did you get to go see the dungeon, like the floor?
I did. No, I didn't get in because it's
Yeah,
actually privately owned now, but they do have the Hart House out the front, which the photo the photo will be
yeah,
put up so you can see that. Yeah. So
yeah. And they had the floor like they it was like a properly put together ring, except it was loosely put together.
yep.
And so if you hit it hard, the board would come up and smack you in the backside, or it would slide over. So the next time you took a bump, your elbow would go through and hit your elbow on the concrete on the floor underneath. And
Ugh. Yeah, I
if you
remember all
wanted
that.
to, yeah, if you wanted to like do a tackle spot, it was like he'd whip you off, you bounce off the wall and come back and do a tackle. Like there's so yeah, we got thrown off walls, or put your head through the ceiling every once in a while, or put your feet through the ceiling and get slammed on. It's just about as hard as concrete in 25 below weather, and it's just it's
Oof.
yes, it's not for the sane, I don't think. Which
Well,
being
that was my next question, Mr. Helton. Um, as I said, it's always Mr. Helton from day one.
yes, it's better than Paul JT Robinson always calling me sir.
Oh, still respect,
It is still, but yeah, I prefer Mr. Helton over sir. So
Mr. Helton. Yes. What was your so you're a young up and coming wrestler. Um, where was your mind at? Where were you excited? Were you looking at WWE, or where was your mindset? Like, was it just pure love for what you were doing, or
yeah.
did you have a plan at all? Were you just sort of hoping for the best? What was your mindset at that?
When I first started, I just wanted to be good enough that they'd let me actually go wrestle,
Okay.
because it um like it wasn't that long. I think it was like 4 months from the first day of training before I first had a match. But yeah, it's like you've seen the stretching and the like the just we'd go to the dead like it was better like once spring came. Like the first few months were like just bumping the, but then it was like Calgary's hilly. I mean, you've been to the Hart Dungeon. You know the road that comes in.
Yep.
We'd have to run up that road, turn left, run around, and then there's back streets, and we'd go all the way back down and kind of do the big circle and get back to the house. So it's like about a 20-minute run up that hill and back around. And like Morris was awesome because I'm not a runner. I hate to run. But he'd be like, come on, run. And we'd run. And then we'd get back and we'd get that big field to that field, and Bruce would be standing there, always saying, like, what took you so long? And then Morris would pick me up on his shoulder and he'd run down to the one other end of the field and do 10 squats. And then he put me down and I'd have to pick him up and run back and then do 10
Wow.
squats. We do a couple laps of the field doing 10 squats, and because like it was training, but like I had been and played high school football and done some stuff, but it's like this was like serious adult training. And so it was kind of like from 0 to 100 almost immediately in the dungeon. Kind of like boot camp at the army. Like, I don't care how in shape you are, this is what you're doing. There's no
Well, you could tell us
beginner grade to it.
you could tell us straight out, Mister Helton. I mean, I mean, people think wrestling and all those kind of things. It's really easy on TV. They go, oh yeah, but the cardiovascular endurance we needed to actually do a match, because you're taking like a hit, which is pretty much a semi car crash on your body, especially you're
Yes.
taking into those buckle bumps. I'll put a Bret Hart buckle bump.
Oh,
And we can see that you're looking at basically a train wreck into your body, a car crash. Um, cardiovascular, what was the cardiovascular conditioning was very important. But how do you think mentally we were you prepared in that way to do that kind of training? Because let's be honest, people go there, I want to do a power bomb, I want to do a chop, I want to,
yeah.
but the most
I
important
know
thing is conditioning. And how'd you go with it?
it was pretty much just, luckily I'm insanely competitive. And
Yep.
so if Morris was still moving, I was still moving, because I wasn't gonna let him beat me and not I wasn't gonna come second in being fitter than, I mean, we were probably the same, because I think we were both 19.
Right.
And so it's like we were in shape, but it wasn't like I said, it was kind of like the army saying, all right, whatever shape you are, this is the shape you have to be in. So lift your game a little bit.
Yep.
And so yeah, like I was saying, after we did the squat and running, we'd go into the dungeon,
Yep.
and he'd say, all right, Morris, give him 50.
Give
This
him
was after, and he'd either slam me, chop me, or clothesline me, or suplex me. 50 times, and we had to bump and get up and bump and get up and bump and
50
get up and
times.
bump
So
and get
this,
up.
this is what people have to understand, ladies and gentlemen, that when we do what we do, it's a big thing, isn't it, Mr. Helton?
It is. It's like, and it's one of those things. It's like I wouldn't recommend anybody do it because you can really hurt yourself. Just doing it properly, you can still hurt yourself. And so I want to say, like, you should know what it feels like, because I wouldn't want anybody else to know what it feels like, because it really does suck. It's like you watch it on TV. It's like, oh, that looks fun, but the bumping is and the bumping and getting up is just,
What did you
there's
think
not
about?
much.
Okay, here's a question for you.
All right.
Here's a question for you. So we do say about how it we'll get this light happening while we're talking. Um, we how much adrenaline is going through your body knowing that this thing's killing you, and the case of the matter of um getting back up and enjoying it, and they say the thrill of the crowd and all that kind of stuff. Um,
Yeah,
oh, there
like,
we go. Oh,
oh,
that's better. That's a lot
yes.
better. That's a lot better. Cool. Yeah. So
Yeah, like,
the thrill of the crowd. What do you think? Um, mentally you're going through with that? Because if people talk about, it does hurt. We take like you see someone like an Iron Man match. The Iron Man match. Of Sean and Bret. I mean, the amount of bumps they took there and to emotionally get back up from there. I mean, it's conditioning, it's great, but it's still
yes.
pound, pound, pound on the body. What is going through your head mentally when you go through those kind of things, mate?
I think it's just like I don't really know. It's just what I got taught to do. So it's like I'm doing what I'm
Okay.
supposed to do. I guess kind of like you're watching the rugby league, and it's like you see them get hit and get up and keep going. It's like
Yep.
watching it afterwards. It's like, oh my goodness, I can't believe he hit me that hard. Unless he unless you break a rib or something, where it's like, okay, I'm injured. That's different. But
Mm.
you get hit, and it's like, well, I gotta get up and play the ball. That's what they taught me to do. So I'm getting up and playing the ball, and I'm just keep going and keep going. Then afterwards, it's afterwards when you come off of it that you go, oh my goodness, can't believe that I'm doing this, because once the adrenaline and the crowd goes, and maybe 15 minutes after you're done and you're sitting there in the dressing room all by yourself, it's like, oh, that really did hurt.
Because
And
yeah, because you look at the case where this is what it's interesting to talk about. I mean, we'll talk about a few things about your career and stuff, but where you were and how you grew emotionally and grew physically, and then and obviously taking it into your real life. Significant. I want to ask you significantly how much wrestling played a part in your real life, and how many lessons and how much you learned as the stellar human being we are. We joke about it, but you are. Um, what influences did you have from your training and your experiences with people like Chris Benoit and people like um, the Hart family? What did you take away from that to help you in your life, and even wrestling matches? Did you have any experiences that sort of you took into real life and go, I could use that experience in real life? Did you have that at all, or
well, mostly it's just keep going. Like when we were training, Bruce would always say, like, fatigue makes cowards of us all, which is true. You get tired, and it's like that. That's when it's like, well, probably like running a marathon. After 10 miles, it's like everybody's tired, and you still got 16 to go. And so it's like, are you willing to go the next 16, or are you going to quit now? And if you quit now, what's the point of all the stuff you did leading up to, I want to run a marathon, and then you run half a marathon and go, no, I quit? Like, that doesn't make sense. If so, it's just, it sucks. And like going through life.
okay?
If I live for like the next 10 years, I'm going to keep in shape. I'm going to do the best I can, but I can't guarantee that it's like, I got up, I went to work every day, I had a good workout, I ate well, and life has just been fantastic for the next 10 years, and everything went successfully.
So you had
I
yeah,
can
keep seven.
guarantee that's not true. Something in the next 10 years, like, God forbid my parents pass away, my brother passes away. Like I got divorced a few years ago, and it's like just things don't always work out the way you want to. And it's, are you gonna bend down and quit, or are you gonna keep going the best you can until it gets better? And
What about that, mate? Well, as I said to you, for me, as I said, this is an interesting one. This is why I asked to interview you because a lot of the teachings that I've learned, and actually when I went through what I went through, my pseudo stroke that I had, a lot of the teachings came through that I actually learned through wrestling, listening, respect, responsibility, listening to flow,
yes,
that flow of life. Don't force things, actually be a nice, it's not be a nice person, but you got to be a nice person to yourself. And they go, oh, value yourself. People could say that, but
mm,
we've actually had to go and do that because I mean, the sport of professional wrestling is what it is. I mean, it's
yes,
killer. It's basically eat or be eaten, really, isn't it?
yes, and one of the first things that they taught me in the dungeon was like protect yourself, but also protect other people. Like if I go in there and I'm stiffing you in the mouth every 30 seconds, you're not going to want to work with me, and nobody's going to work with me, and that'd be the end of your career.
Well, you draw money, don't you? It's like that's what people don't.
Yeah.
I think in some ways people don't get. I mean, if you do it for just a bit of fun, but you always respect someone, that's fine. But when it comes to
Hmm.
someone in America, as I said, I met Bret last year, and people were coming up to me going, "Did you tell him you were wrestling? You won titles and stuff." I gave, I had to look. I didn't say a word, right? I just
Mm.
looked and I was going in the back of my head. I'm going, "You are kidding." So I go and meet Bret Hart, right? And I go and meet Bret Hart, right? And then I go up, oh, g'day, Bret, how you going? I was an Australian champion. I mean, does that show
And
stoicism or does that show ego ego at its best? Oh, I don't know. What do you think, Mr. Helton?
I think, like, I don't know, if you're 22, I mean, you get excited, and so, but in the
No,
grand
that's
scheme
different.
of things,
See, that's different, right? That's talk
yeah,
because it look
that's the worst thing to do, though, is like, it's like if I met Bruce Springsteen or something, hey, I sing in the. It's like, no, nobody cares whether I sing, because compared to Bret Hart, I never wrestled because he's so much more accomplished, and
absolutely. There you go. Clickbait that, ladies and gentlemen.
yeah, and so it's like I could say, like, I wrestle too. I really appreciate your work because I know how talented you are. But to bring it on to, hey, I do it too. You should be impressed with me as much as I'm impressed with you. No, like, yeah,
Oh,
Bret Hart doesn't have
absolutely.
to be impressed by anybody.
Bret Hart has to be impressed by nobody. And the thing is, I think what I found, and I think I found with a lot of Canadians, Mr. Helton, is that there is an element, there's a real element of respect over in your country. When I went over there, and it's probably gone off a little bit, but gone off a little bit off track as we usually do, because I like to talk a bit
That's all right.
about, like to talk a little bit about where this stoicism came from in your life, because you've always lived a very high, respectful life since I've known you, especially in the wrestling caper, which you were always very respected in the back room, in the locker room.
Mm.
Oh, Jason Helton from Sydney, New South
Yes.
Wales. Um, he's coming, and you're very respected. Even the first time I met you, uh, Super Show, I think you wrestled Mark Mercedes, and you were very respected. We knew you were a worker. You knew what to do. You'd done it. You'd wrestled Taz, and you could tell him what happened.
Yeah, yeah, that was what? That was a big turning point in my life.
Yep.
Yeah, it's like, because I think if I could have stayed in ECW for another 18 months, they got bought by WWE. And so that might have ended up in being WWE if I would have stayed with ECW. But unfortunately, I got. I'm going to go on a bit of a tangent here too. It's
Go
like,
for it.
it's nice that you say that I was respected, but not by everybody, and it's just frustrating that it's like I'm respected when I'm saying what they want to hear, but if I'm telling them something different, then it's like I'm just a nobody who doesn't know anything. Because I tried to teach other people, like, the mistake I made was we went over the match and it's like, oh, okay, but he said, "I'll give you a head and arm suplex." And I had an idea of in my head what it is, and I did it the way that I thought he would do it, but I didn't ask him how he was going to do it. I just went, "I'll just go along with it." And long story short, he picked me up, and I thought he was going to turn me and land me on my back, and he picked me up and didn't turn me at all, and so I went straight over onto the top of my head, and I cracked some vertebrae in my neck, which was unfortunate. But that was my fault because, I mean, he didn't have to do it that way. But it's like it was my fault for not. I just said, "All right, I'm listening to what you say," and I thought he was going to do it one way, and I didn't confirm it with him because if he would have done it the way I thought he would have done it, I would have. Or if I knew he was going to do it the way he was doing it instead of the way I thought he was going to do it, I would have taken off and jumped in the air like I would have, and I would have landed differently.
What
I still would have
about,
landed probably on the back of my shoulders, but I mean that's fine. I do that all the
yeah,
time.
what about okay, I'll take this back to respect in the locker room. Was it this comes into real life, and this is what I was where we go. So you actually look at all the lessons that you came through.
Yes.
What was the case that you obviously did you realize you had did you could you have spoken up and asked him, or did you feel like you thought if I said anything I look inferior because I don't know what I'm doing, or is there a disrespect in some not disrespect, but is it respect? Just go out there and do it.
No.
What's the protocol there? Could you basically did you have a could you have had a chance to say, listen, Taz, I've got this is that's the move. Can you tell me if there's any way I've got to take it? I haven't taken it this way, or
It's like
is that the culture, or is it culture of just obviously they'll always look after you. Don't get me wrong; it was nothing deliberate, but you know what I mean. Like, was it?
no, I could like I don't think it was ego because I mean I'd been wrestling seven
That's what I
years
was.
by that time.
That's why I'm asking. Is it? Was it like could you? Was it a case of not a case of did you forget to sort of thing, or just said, okay, sure, as a professional, I should know how to take it? Is that
Well, yeah, it was like, and like I said, it's like it might have been just like because he's a stocky guy, but he's not very tall, and I just like I don't know. It's like I just thought like he couldn't throw me any other way than what he could have because I think I was about 240 at the time, and so it's like that's a bit of weight to be throwing. So I think he'll pick me up, turn me, and land me on my back. I didn't like it didn't even occur to me that he'd be strong enough to just pick me up and take me straight over the way he did. And so it's like, yeah, it's like if I would have thought of it, but it's like it didn't even cross my mind that that was a possibility. Kind of like if I went to you, it's like I'll give you a body slam. You know what a body slam is, but you don't get like you don't picture in your head that. No, I'm talking about picking you up over my head and slamming you like a press slam.
body slam, press slam? So it's
Yeah,
okay. So I take this as a learning moment, Mr. Helton. So as I said to you,
yes,
is it a case of like in any job or anything that you've done in the past, have you learned from that to actually speak yourself and speak up and value yourself more, or
yes,
do you think it's a cultural thing in any type, not just wrestling, but a cultural thing? What do you how do you
yeah,
find it?
yeah. Because like I said, it's like I don't think it was like a disrespect or a culture thing or anything like that. It was just I pictured something in my head, and I didn't picture that he could have done it any other way than I did it. So it's like I didn't even think to ask him like, "What do you mean?" Because I thought I knew, and then 'cause, yeah, it's kind of like you lock me like that, and like it's kind of like a German suplex. You think there's
Yeah.
only one way to do it, but if you're strong enough, there's a few ways you can do a German suplex. Like you can either go like straight back or up in like bridge or whatever. And like I didn't even think of like a German suplex. I would have said, "Are you going to release me or are you going to bridge?" But
Yes. Yeah.
I
Release
ha-
them.
yeah, but a head and arm suplex, it's like I can only picture there's one way to do that. Not thinking that you're incredibly freakishly strong with such a low center of gravity that I'm going to go flying when you do it.
Well, they call it an exploder now in some ways, that's their new name.
Kind of, but yeah, it's held a little bit differently, but
Hmm.
it's more to the side this one. because yeah, he got his shoulder under my shoulder, kind of locked up, and then went. It's hard to do it on Zoom, but we were kind of like at 90-degree angles, and I thought he'd
I'll
pick me
put a
up at the
picture up.
90
Don't
degree
worry.
angles,
I'll put a picture
and
up. Don't
then
worry.
yeah, and then yeah, I thought when I get to the top, he'll turn me and throw me on my back. I
It
didn't
didn't
think
happen.
that he can just send me from 90 degrees from one or go totally 180 over his head and throw me.
Yeah.
And I didn't even think that was a possibility, so I didn't think to ask.
What about changing your life, Mr. Helton? In what way did that change your life?
Well, because I
And in what way? We're not looking, okay, we're looking physically, okay. Obviously, you
yeah.
had the physical, but spiritually, emotionally, and mentally, what did it do for you? What did it do for you? Like, did it?
Well, because I went back home to backing up a little bit. Like I thought it was like everybody said, "Are you all right? Are you all right?" Because it didn't hurt at the time. It was kind of like knocked me loopy because I landed on my head, but it's like, no, I'm fine. And then it's, I used to be so much stronger than I am now. It's kind of sad, but I went back to where I was staying, and then a couple days later, I went to the gym, and I think I was squatting about 385, and I had pounds, not kilos, but about 400 pounds on the bar. And when I did the first squat, I kind of felt like a tightness. And then I took a deep breath going down on the second one. I went, and the guy across the room could hear it go. And he's like, "Are you okay?" It's like, "I think so." But I did this, and it's like, "Oh, I got this big lump in my chest now." And I had broken my sternum when I got dropped on my head because I smacked my chin into my chest and broke my sternum. And then when I added the weight of the squat, it popped out my rib. And I just had a loose flowing rib that was hanging. And it's like,
Wow.
oh, that's not good. And it's like, especially in America, it's like I didn't even have travel insurance. Like I'm not going to a doctor in America because that'll cost me everything I
Thousands.
have and probably a little bit more. So I said, like, I got to go back to Canada. I'll come back if I can. And so I went back to Canada, and I went there and I stayed. I think I stayed in Calgary for a few months, so maybe like early '97. I stayed like June 1996 was when I wrestled Taz. Then say maybe I stayed home for maybe 8 months, and then I moved out to Vancouver, where they had a wrestling thing out there that I wanted to get back started at. And the fella I was living with, he's Luther. You know Luther?
Oh, yeah, yeah, in
Yeah.
AEW, the one who comes out with Tony Storm.
Yeah, he was my roommate in Vancouver. And
We're gonna do a second part already, okay?
yes, and so I was living with Luther, and he said, because I was working security at night. He said, "What are you doing like tomorrow?" And I don't know, like nothing really. Well, my friend's up from Australia. She was here like 6 months ago or something like that, and she went home. And then because her visa ran out, and then she got another one and came back. But she was on a working visa last time, but she's not on a visa this time, so she can't work. So she just sits home all day because we're all working during the day. Do you want to hang out with her tomorrow? And it's like, all right. And then I think we met at like 11 o'clock. You've been to Vancouver, right?
Certainly have.
Yeah, I met her and we had shawarmas for lunch, and then we walked through Stanley Park
Oh, I've been
for
there. Yeah, I was good.
yeah.
You didn't mind that
We
one.
wa- yeah, we walked through Stanley Park for hours, and like when she came back, when I came back, it's like, well, I think that's the one. And we saw each other like every day from there until her visa was running out. And so I said she'd either have to come back to Australia, reapply for a visa, and come back, or I could just come back with her on a prospective spouse visa. So we decided to get married. It was like, I don't know, 3 months after I met her.
Wow.
August,
So
September,
do you
October.
think, okay,
No.
so I think so all this so this the neck break and all those kind of things, the neck break and all that, did you think that played a big part in what you in the next journey, in the next chapter of your life? I mean, we could talk about the wrestling forever. I mean, but you've given
Yes.
us enough. But Do you think that played a big part? And after you came to Australia, how long have we got? We've got. Let's have a look. Oh, we'll be right. We'll see how we go.
All right.
We'll see how we go. Do you think it played a big part in? Did you want to settle down, or was there anything? Was there any
Well,
burning desire to do anything as such as move to another country and go, wow, that's a big thing anyway. Calgary, Canada, Calgary to Australia, and to do something else or settle down or whatever.
well, it was weird because it was just like I just knew I wanted to stay with her,
Okay.
and I didn't really have any. You know the Simpsons episode of Australia where they come down and they have the booting,
Oh, it's where it's yeah. I'm not a big
where
Simpsons fan. I'll
Bart
be
makes
honest
a
with you. Yeah, I'm not a
yeah
big one, but I sort of remember it to a
yeah
point.
that episode is about all I knew about Australia. Like
Wow. Do you know
I
about
knew nothing about Australia.
kangaroos, koalas, and Steve Irwin impersonations?
Yes, yeah, it's just I didn't even know Steve Irwin back then because that was like
I think it was
before
going.
two that
Did he come
like
in?
I might
Hmm. Trying to
I
think.
don't know, but it's like he wasn't as big as he was like as he
Oh
was
God,
later
he
on.
took off, didn't he?
Yeah, but yeah, I knew kangaroos, I knew koalas, I knew alligators. I just but I really didn't
Crocodiles.
know anything about Australia except that's where she lived, and if I wanted to stay with her, I'd have to go there, and so I did, which it worked out. But it's like what an incredible leap of faith I took because if anybody would come to me and say this is what I'm planning on doing, it's like you're insane. Like why?
It
Because
was meant to be, man. This is the thing I was thinking of, like looking at, you know, where we are right now. This is what I talk about a lot about the flow and what you learn in your life. And you went from pro wrestler, ECW, 2 months later could have been WWE, but you end up fracturing some vertebrae.
yes,
Meeting this lady. 3 months later, you're going, oh my god, I'm living with kangaroos.
yes, yeah, it was yeah 1986, middle of 1986. I was wrestling in ECW, and like a year and a half later, I was living in Australia, married to an Australian woman,
How long
and
ago? About 3 months after.
no, about 18 months total, and it was
18 months
like just
total. Okay. Yep.
yeah, so yeah, just if you could have said that's what you're going to be doing in the next 2 years, it's like no way, like that's all insane. But like I was saying, I was coming over on the plane, and I didn't know where Brisbane was. I had talked to her mom and dad on the phone because being the old fashioned gentleman I am, I phoned over and asked her dad for permission to marry his
Stellar.
daughter.
There you go.
I
Stellar.
know, I know. But except for those two things, like if something would have happened to her on the plane, I would have been stuck in Brisbane. I had since the PowerPoints are different, I sold everything I owned. I had $2,000 in the bank, which probably wouldn't have got me back to Canada if I would have had to buy a ticket to come back. I knew her mom and dad's name, but they lived in Tamworth, which I didn't know where Tamworth was. I didn't know I didn't know their phone number. She had the phone number, so but I would just been like stuck in Brisbane by myself, not knowing anything about the country. And I
And
it
how
was
did you
about a
feel?
month later.
How did you? Okay. And there's one for you, ladies and gentlemen. We're taking a leap of faith into anything you do. Like, you know, Mr. Helton's going, he's met this lady and jumped in. Is there times in your life you can see how, you know, at times of our life we feel we're doing the right thing. I think a lot of people, and I myself, we overthink things a lot, and
Yeah.
we don't trust, and that comes to a value of, you know, whether it's the situation that you value or whether it's you value or whether it's a happiness. There's a lot more different things. We're going to go to part two. We're going to go to
All right.
part two. So we're going to cut this and have a bit of a drink break,
All right.
bit of a rest session, call it intermission. You know, Australian,
All right. An intermission is good.
intermission, and we'll be back in a couple of minutes. And usually the Aussie wrestlers they have a raffle. So- but it's been a pleasure with Mr. Jason Helton, Canadian Hellraiser from Calgary, Alberta, Canada, and we're going to talk about how he selected me in Newcastle to wrestle his last match, which at the time
Yeah.
it was his retirement at the time, and I was very honored to do that. And I was one we're going to ask him why he picked me to wrestle at that time. It's going to be a pleasure. We'll be back very soon. If you want to like, subscribe, and share to the channel, do so. We're on Buzzsprout. We're on Spotify. We're on all social media platforms. Have a check out if you want to come on the show. Love to have a chat to you. This is what we do. We get stories out. We teach, we learn, and any type of lesson, teaching, word, sentence could help someone get ahead, become better, save their life. This is what we're all about. We'll be back with part 2 at the Canadian Hellraiser very, very soon.